The inner life has an architecture. Nobody sat us down and explained it. Not what was happening inside us. Not why some moments felt like drowning when nothing at all, was actually wrong. Not why certain emotions would just arrive, uninvited, and refuse to leave no matter what we did. Not why we could hold everything together in front of people and then walk through our own front door and completely fall apart. Nobody explained why this whole elaborate, relentless inner world, the one that's running constantly every single day underneath everything we do, didn't come with any kind of instruction. No map. Nothing. Nobody showed us the structure. We learned plenty about the world outside, right? How things work, what they're called, what to do when they break. History, math, the proper way to shake someone's hand, how to show up in a way that makes sense to other people. But the interior? What's actually going on in here? We were pretty much left to figure that out alone. And most of us haven't, not really. What we've done instead is learn to manage it, and we've gotten really good at managing, containing the difficult stuff until it stops being inconvenient, performing stability so convincingly that we actually forget what real stability feels like, explaining ourselves to other people without really understanding what's happening inside us, just getting through the day. And most days, that's enough. Most days, the management holds until it doesn't. Something happens. Doesn't even have to be dramatic. Doesn't even have to make sense, that the usual strategies just can't handle. An emotion shows up at full volume and refuses to quiet down. An identity that suddenly doesn't fit anymore, like a coat you've outgrown. A certainty you've been holding on to that suddenly requires more energy than you have left to give it. A relationship ends, or a belief, or the version of yourself you've been running on for years. And without a map, it just feels like chaos. Not because it actually is chaos, but because you don't know what you're looking at. I want to say something before we go any further. This isn't about being broken. That's not what I'm getting at here, and it's not how I want to frame any of this. The word broken implies something used to work fine and then something went wrong. But what I'm pointing at, it's not damage. It's just the absence of a map. Think about it like this. Imagine handing someone a house they're supposed to live in, but never showing them the blueprints. Never explaining which walls are actually holding the house up, where the plumbing runs, what part of the foundation gets stressed when there's pressure. They're not broken for not knowing that. Nobody told them. And that's kind of where we all are with our inner lives. We're all living inside this incredibly complex structure that nobody ever explained to us. And the suffering, especially for people who feel things deeply, who think constantly, who are just exhausted by surface level answers. That suffering isn't really about how intense the experience is. It's about not having any structure to hold it in. Listen. It's not that the emotion is too big. It's that there's no container for it. It's not that the collapse is too complete. It's that you've never been shown what to stand on when all the usual things stop holding you up. You're not too sensitive or too intense or too much. It's just that sensitivity without any structure. That's basically exposure. And you can't stay exposed like that indefinitely without something breaking. Not because you're weak, but because nothing is designed to work that way. So here's what I want to offer as a different way to look at it. The inner life has an architecture. What I mean is this: what's happening inside you isn't random. It's not chaos, even though it can feel exactly like chaos. There are patterns to it, real, recognizable patterns. There are ways emotions move through a body, ways identity gets formed and then deformed. Ways collapse tends to follow a sequence you can learn to recognize. If you know what you're looking at, and knowing what you're looking at, that changes everything. Not because it makes the experience less intense, but because it makes it legible. And when something becomes legible, you can actually inhabit it. When it stays illegible, all you can do is white-knuckle your way through it. Let me talk for a minute about how most of us learn to deal with our inner experience. Because I think there are basically two modes most people move between, and neither one is what I'm describing here. The first mode is being completely inside it, flooded. You're so deep in the emotion or the collapse or whatever it is that there's no perspective at all, no place to stand outside it and see what's actually happening. You just are what's happening. There's no room for anything else. The second mode is being completely outside it, defended, managed. You've built enough distance between yourself and the experience that it can't really touch you anymore. Which means you're safe, sure, but you're also not really present. You're kind of maintaining your life from a careful distance, rather than actually living it. And both of those feel like the only options when you're in them, right? Flooded or defended, consumed or managed. Most people spend their whole lives bouncing between those two and call it emotional health, or if not health, at least functional enough to get by. But there's actually a third way, and it's not just some middle ground between the two. It's a completely different orientation altogether. It's the ability to be fully present to what you're experiencing, not defended from it, not running from it. while also being able to read what's happening. Having enough internal structure that you're not consumed by what's moving through you. Being able to hold the experience without grabbing onto it, without needing it to either stop or keep going. Being actually inside your own life, incapable of being there. That's what I mean when I talk about containment, not suppression, not creating distance. It's having the capacity to hold an experience in a structure that's solid enough that it doesn't destroy you, while staying present enough that you're actually there for what's happening. And this isn't something you either have or you don't, like eye color or something. It's a skill. And like any skill that involves building something real, it takes time and materials and a blueprint to work from. The blueprint is what I want to build with you. Let me be really clear about what this is and what it's not. This is not therapy. I'm not a therapist, and I'm not trying to replace what therapy does, which is important and necessary and a completely different thing. If you're working with a therapist, please keep doing that. This might give you some different language for what you're already exploring there, but it's not meant to replace that work at all. This is not some kind of step-by-step program for feeling better. There's no 5 steps here. No paint-by-numbers protocol that promises to fix everything by Tuesday. The interior is way too complex and way too particular to each person for that. And honestly, I don't trust anyone who tells you otherwise. And this isn't spirituality in the sense of asking you to believe something you can't verify from your own experience. I'm not asking for faith here. I'm asking for attention. Those are really different requests. What this actually is, what I'm trying to build over the course of a lot of conversations, across many months, is a map. A detailed, honest map of the interior landscape. What's actually there, how it works, what happens when different parts of it fail, what's left standing when the structures you thought were permanent turn out to be temporary. I'm not coming at this as someone who figured it all out from some objective distance, looking down from above. I'm coming at this as someone who's spent years inside these exact questions, who's felt the ground disappear more than once, who's had to rebuild slowly and imperfectly, and in that rebuilding process started to understand something about the structure of what broke in the first place. The things I want to share with you aren't theories I read somewhere and thought sounded interesting. They're maps I've drawn from territory I've actually walked through myself. Sometimes crawled through, if I'm being honest. Which means they're incomplete. They're always going to be incomplete. The map isn't the territory, right? But an incomplete map is infinitely more useful than no map at all when you're trying to navigate something real. I want to end today by saying something that I think actually matters most at the beginning. Before we dive into the specific architecture of emotions, before we talk about what identity really is and how it falls apart, before we get into what actually makes an interior stable over time, you're not here because you're broken. You're here because you're perceptive enough to sense that something's missing. You feel a depth to your own experience that most conversations just never reach. You've probably spent time in therapy, done the reading, tried meditation, maybe all of it, and gotten something real from each of those things. But you've also probably felt like they're all kind of circling around something important without quite naming it directly. What they're not naming, what almost nothing names clearly, is the architecture itself. The fact that the interior actually has structure to it, that you can learn that structure, that learning, it doesn't suddenly make the hard things easy, but it does make them inhabitable in a way they weren't before. Not just survived, actually inhabited. There's an inner structure beneath emotion, identity, and collapse. And when you learn how to inhabit it, you stop breaking. That's what we're building here, one piece of the map at a time. If anything I said today landed for you, if there was a sentence that felt like recognition rather than just new information, I'd invite you to just stay with that for a bit. Don't try to analyze it right away. Don't immediately start searching for more content about it. Just notice which part of you recognized it, because that's usually where the actual work begins. I'm really glad you're here.